Now we're going to look at creating a new plot and adding data to that plot. Now to create a new plot, you need the Navigator view open. So if you can't remember how to do this, please refer back to the previous tutorial. So right click on your project, mouse over new, and then click on debrief plot. And then the create new debrief plot wizard will start. As you can see, we have the container, which is the project. Everything must be stored in a project. And then we have file name, which I'm going to just go with the default of new_plot.dpf. Then I click on next, and then I get the add vectored background data. And this is adding the natural earth dataset to this plot. If you don't want this, you can deselect it, but I would suggest that you do so. Then we click on next, and then you can add a scale to your plot. I am going to include the plot. I'm going to have the default color of black. Now I want my plot displayed in yards, and then if you do select to the display units, then you need to put the position. Now I'm going to display mine in the bottom left. Then I get next, and then do I want a coastline? Yes, I do. And then if I want to select something other than the defaults, then I can. Then I click on next again, and then I get the choice to add the grid, and again you can select these options. Now I'm going to go for 1 degree for distance, and that's the end of the wizard. So I click on finish, and then after a second or so I then get my new plot. And if I expand my project folder, there you can see the file newplot.dpf. That's how you create a new plot. We're not going to actually use this plot for the next tutorial, so I click on the cross to close it. And I'm now going to drag in a simple track. So if I click on the down arrow next to sample data, and then I scroll down and I see boat1.rep. Now I can double click on it if I want to open it, or I can just drag it and drop it. And then I get the select track mode because this was what was selected in preferences earlier. I click on OK, and there's my boat1.rep file displayed in the plot editor. And that's how we drag in a simple track. Now we don't need boat1.rep, so I'm now going to close that. And we'll drag in a complex plot. So in the Navigator view, I scroll down and I find sample.dpf. And again, I can double click or I can drag it and drop it across. And now we see a slightly more complex plot. We have multiple features, multiple tracks, and gives us a lot more to work with. Now before we go any further, we'll just talk about the debrief file types. And we've encountered 2 types so far. The replay file type, which is the .rep file, as you saw with boat1.rep a minute ago. And then we have the debrief file type, which is the .dpf. Now the 2 file types differ in that though the rep file format is a very simple column-oriented text format, which is ideal for passing around track data and for getting raw track data into debrief, it isn't suited to storing formatting data or user preferences. In contrast, though, with its textual XML structure and the ability to store a wide range of data, the DPF file format is. As such, a typical flow is that data enters debrief initially in rep format, and an analyst then uses this data to create a custom plot, and this plot is then stored in XML format as a DPF file. And as we can see, our track data is now on the plot. So now we're going to edit the data. Now it's a good idea whenever you open up a new plot is to make sure that you can see everything that you're going to be working with. So to do that, we click on the Fit to Window button. And as we can see with this particular plot, then it is maximized to the window. But if let's say I zoom in and then I want to fit to window again, then that's just a quick way of being able to see everything that you're working with. The next thing we're going to do is we need to make sure that the properties view is open. And as we can see, our properties view is. If it wasn't, we can click on Window, Show View, and then click on Properties. Next, we're going to select an item on the plot. And the easiest way to do this is to just double click on the item. And here we have some label, and next to it we have a red circle. Now I'm going to double click on the circle, and as I do so, watch what happens in the Properties view. As you can see, the properties of the circle all become visible. And if I wanted to, I can change the color, I can change the font, I can change the label location underneath the circle, like that, and I can change all the various attributes. Now, let's look at the no-go delta rectangle, and I double click on that, and as you can see in the properties view, this object is selected. So what I'm going to do now is change the color of the rectangle. So I click on the color attribute in the properties view. Then I see this ellipsis button. I click on that. That opens. I'm going to select red. Then I click on OK. And as you can see in the plot editor, the NoGo Delta label and the rectangle have changed to red. However, this doesn't meet the NATO military standard 12332 subparagraph 14G 2002 version, unfortunately, so we need to undo it. Now I can undo this in a number of ways. Click on Edit, and then I can select Undo NoGo Delta Color, and that will undo the change that I've just made. Now that I've undone the action, if I click on Edit again, I can then see that I get a redo option. And if I click on Redo, the NoGo Delta rectangle and label changes to red, but I'll undo it again, put it back to green. One point to note is this undo button applies to the active debrief view. So to undo a change to a plot, you must first select the plot and make it active before pressing undo. If you notice there, when I clicked on Edit, on the right hand side there, you have Ctrl+Z next to undo and Ctrl+Y next to redo. These are the shortcut keys for undoing and redoing actions within the debrief editor. And these are actually common Windows shortcuts, so you can use Ctrl+Z and Ctrl+Y to undo and redo across most of your applications on your PC. Next, we're going to edit a position. So to select a position within a track, you need to double click on that position, and then its editable attributes will appear in the properties view. And you can modify all these attributes as required. You must note different elements have different properties, so you may have to scroll up and down the properties view to see all available properties. And to edit an entire track, we need to use the outline view, and this makes selecting our plots easy. So if the outline view is not open, click on Window, Show View, then Outline View. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select a track. If I left click on the Collingwood track, as you can see in the properties view, the properties of this track are now visible. And the same if I click on Nelson track. Don't forget that you can rearrange views within debrief pretty quickly and easily simply by dragging and dropping them into different locations. I'm now going to move my outline view across to the fast view, so I right click on the tab and then I select fast view. And I'm going to do the same with Navigator, and I'm going to put that into the fast view as well. Then I'm going to drag my fast view up to the top of the screen where I like it. And there, if I want to view the outline and I want to view the Navigator, I can do it like that. Now that concludes this part of the video, and in the next video we're going to look at editing your data and editing positions.